She found out her millionaire fiancé had multiple girlfriends and devised the perfect revenge plan. The crystal chandelier sparkled overhead, casting a golden glow across the lavish penthouse. Waiters in crisp white jackets glided between the elegantly dressed guests, balancing trays of champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. Soft classical music floated through the air, but the hum of conversations and clinking glasses filled the room with an energy that was both electric and controlled. At the center of it all stood Isabella Monroe, radiant in an ivory satin gown that hugged her figure gracefully. Her blonde hair cascaded in loose waves over her shoulders, the diamond engagement ring on her finger glinting under the light. This was supposed to be her night. The night she and Julian Kensington, the charming billionaire bachelor, celebrated their engagement with New York's elite. But something felt off. The whispers. The stolen glances. A tightness settled in her chest as she scanned the room, searching for the source of the discomfort gnawing at her. And then she heard it. Two women, elegantly dressed in designer gowns, stood near the marble fireplace, speaking in hushed tones, their manicured hands cupped around their champagne flutes. "Did you see her? Poor thing has no idea." "I know. Julian's been with at least 3 other women since they got engaged. And that model last weekend? Blatant." Isabella's heart stopped. The blood drained from her face, the room tilting slightly as she struggled to process their words. No, this can't be right. They're just gossiping. But the words replayed like a relentless echo. 3 other women. Blatant. Julian's voice cut through the fog, smooth and confident as he laughed with a group of business partners near the bar. His tailored navy suit was perfection, his smile effortless, like the man she had fallen for. But had she really known him at all? The rest of the night passed in a blur of forced smiles and polite conversation. Isabella played the perfect fiancé, gracefully accepting congratulations and exchanging warm pleasantries. But her mind was racing. The whispers haunted her, coiling tighter with every passing moment. By midnight, the crowd had thinned. The music had faded, leaving only the soft hum of city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Julian kissed her temple, his voice low. "You've been quiet tonight, darling. Everything all right?" She forced a smile. "Of course. Just tired from all the excitement." He nodded, oblivious, then excused himself to take a call. It was the moment she had been waiting for. Slipping into his home office, Isabella's pulse thundered in her ears. "Just paranoia," she told herself. "There's nothing to find." But as she opened his desk drawer, her heart clenched. The phone. Julian's spare work phone. The one he had said was only for emergencies. Her trembling fingers unlocked the screen. No passwords. And then, there it was. A string of unread messages. "Jessica, miss you already, babe. Can't wait for our next trip. Ava, last night was incredible. Don't keep me waiting." Isabella scrolled further, stomach twisting tighter with each revelation. Photos, messages, reservations at luxury hotels, none of which had been with her. A sharp pain seared through her chest, making her feel like the air had been sucked from the room. The betrayal wasn't subtle. It was blatant. Undeniable. Her hands shook as she placed the phone back where she found it. Julian returned a few minutes later, his arm slipping effortlessly around her waist. "Shall we turn in for the night, my love?" His lips brushed her cheek, and Isabella felt numb. How had she missed it? How had she been so blind? The perfect fiancés, the perfect lies. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to expose him right then and there. But instead, she smiled. A perfect, practiced smile. Of course, Julian. And as she rested her head on his shoulder that night, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, her mind was anything but calm. "You think you've won. You think I'm just another woman you can manipulate." But she was already planning. And this was just the beginning. "You'll regret ever underestimating me, Julian." The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the Manhattan skyline as Isabella sat silently at her favorite corner table in Café Amor. The untouched cup of chamomile tea before her had long since cooled, the steam dissipating while her mind raced. Her hands clenched the edge of the marble table, replaying every lie, every whispered rumor from the engagement party. The evidence was clear. The pain was real. But tonight, pain wasn't her fuel. It was something sharper. Justice. "Bella, you have to tell him," Elena urged, leaning closer from across the table. Her best friend's usually warm eyes were dark with fury. You deserve better than this lying, cheating. I know, Isabella interrupted, her voice steady but cold. And I will. But not yet. Elena's brow furrowed. What do you mean, not yet? He doesn't deserve your silence. I'm not staying silent. Isabella's voice lowered, her fingers tapping the phone in her lap. I want him to feel it, Elena. The way I felt when I saw those messages. The way I felt when I stood beside him, playing the perfect fiancé while he made me look like a fool. Elena blinked, processing. So, what's your plan? Isabella exhaled, her lips pressing into a thin line. Exposing him. Completely. I'm going to ruin his reputation, but I won't do it alone. That night, Isabella sat cross-legged on the plush rug in her apartment, surrounded by neatly stacked folders and the flicker of candlelight. The files weren't hers. They were his. Credit card statements from their shared accounts. Restaurant bookings, ones she'd never attended. Hotel reservations. Jewelry receipts. A knot formed in her stomach as she scanned the neatly itemized charges. Thousands. The messages from his spare phone had been discreetly copied onto her laptop. She knew the women's names now. Jessica, Ava, Liliana. But there was more. A financial pattern emerging, a trail of hush money payments disguised as consulting fees in his company's accounting records. Isabella's lips curled into a bitter smile. Arrogant, careless, and so easy to catch. 2 nights later, Julian stood at the kitchen island of their penthouse, swirling a glass of aged bourbon. Darling, he drawled, not even looking up from his phone as she set down the dinner plates. The Met Gala invitations arrived today. I expect you'll be wearing something from Versetti's next collection. Yes? Can't have the Kensington name looking anything but flawless. Flawless. The word hung heavy between them. Isabella forced a smile. Of course, Julian. Inside, she seethed. Even now, he assumed she'd stay, that she'd continue playing the part of his obedient, perfect fiancé. Not for long. A week later, Isabella sat in a private lounge at the Stanton Hotel, the dim lighting casting shadows across the room as she nervously adjusted her silk blouse. She wasn't alone. Jessica arrived first, icy, composed, her lips painted a defiant red. Ava came next, her eyes scanning the room, nervous but curious. And then Liliana, the quietest, but her eyes burned with quiet fury. The silence lingered until Isabella finally spoke. I know you don't trust me, and I don't blame you, she began, voice calm yet commanding. But we have one thing in common. She set the photographs gently on the table, the same receipts, the messages, the stolen moments with Julian. The effect was immediate. Jessica's eyes narrowed, Ava paled. Liliana exhaled shakily. Isabella continued. He thought he could manipulate us all, use us, keep us silent. Jessica's lips curled in disgust. What do you want from us, Isabella? To sit around feeling sorry for ourselves? No, Isabella's voice sharpened. I want us to destroy him, together. The room fell into silence once more. And then, slowly, they nodded. As the women left the lounge, Isabella remained seated, staring into her untouched glass of wine. Her hands trembled, just slightly as she opened her phone, scrolling through the carefully saved evidence once more. This wouldn't just be personal revenge. It would be a statement. A warning. And as Julian's face stared back at her from the engagement announcement on her screen, she whispered under her breath, You built this perfect image. Now I'll be the one to shatter it. The grandeur of the Kensington Foundation Charity Gala was nothing short of breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the ballroom, reflecting off the sleek marble floors. Classical music drifted gently through the air as Manhattan's elite mingled, sipping champagne from crystal flutes, their designer gowns and tuxedos shimmering under the lights. At the center of it all was Julian Kensington. Confident, polished, arrogant. He stood near the stage, mingling effortlessly with business tycoons and celebrities, the perfect image of wealth and power. And Isabella was right where he wanted her, on his arm, silent, beautiful, a decorative accessory to his success. But tonight she was far from silent. The gala's theme was a night of giving, yet it felt more like a parade of excess. Lavish ice sculptures. A string quartet flown in from Paris. All carefully designed to stroke Julian's ego. And Isabella knew every detail. She had planned it, after all. Her custom emerald gown flowed like liquid silk, but behind her composed smile, her heart hammered. This was it. Across the ballroom, Jessica, Ava, and Liliana sat strategically placed among the VIP guests, each woman elegantly poised yet unmistakably present. Julian hadn't noticed them yet. He was too busy soaking in the attention. The perfect moment was near. Julian's voice echoed through the grand hall as he took the stage, his arm extended to invite polite applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, flashing his signature charismatic smile, "tonight, we gather not only to give back but to celebrate the power of unity, love, and," he turned, his hand gesturing toward Isabella, "partnership. My fiancée, Isabella Monroe, embodies grace and strength. She has been my rock, and I am endlessly proud to have her by my side as we build a future together." The crowd applauded. But Isabella, her stomach twisted, not with pain, but resolve. He wasn't praising her. He was using her, just like every other woman who believed his lies. Not anymore. Before Julian could continue, Isabella stepped forward. Calmly, deliberately. The room quieted, curious whispers rippling through the crowd. Julian blinked, his smile faltering slightly. "Darling, what?" She gently took the microphone from his hand. "Thank you, Julian, truly." Her voice was steady, but inside, her pulse raced. "I am so honored to be here tonight, standing beside a man I once believed to be my forever." A murmur spread through the crowd. Once believed. Julian's expression shifted, a crack forming in his perfect facade. Isabella continued, her gaze sweeping the room. "But tonight I feel it's important to share a different truth. One that's been hidden for too long." She turned her attention to the massive projector screen behind them. And with a press of a small remote in her hand, the messages appeared. Text bubbles filled the screen. "Jessica, I miss you already, babe. Ava, when can we meet again? Liliana, the night was unforgettable." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Julian went pale. "This," his voice cracked, face blanching as the crowd turned toward him. "Isabella, stop this." But she raised a hand, silencing him. "There's more." One by one, photographs appeared, Julian dining privately with other women, the same luxury hotels booked under his name. Isabella's voice remained controlled, but her words sliced like a blade. "These aren't rumors. These are facts, evidence. The same messages I discovered while you stood beside me, smiling, promising a life built on loyalty and trust." Julian clenched his fists. "You don't understand." She cut him off. "No, Julian, you don't understand." The crowd was dead silent. "I loved you. I believed in you. But love without honesty, without respect, that's not love at all." Her voice softened, but the steel remained. "So tonight, I'm not just walking away. I'm reclaiming my dignity, my worth." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Journalists whispered into their phones. Jessica, Ava, and Liliana stepped forward from their seats, making their presence known, living proof of Julian's deception. Julian, cornered and exposed, tried to maintain composure. "This is ridiculous. Fabricated. Isabella, we can talk about this privately." But she shook her head. "We're done talking, Julian." And with that, she handed the microphone back to the stunned event coordinator and stepped off the stage, her head held high. The whispers were no longer about her humiliation. They were about his. Hours later, Julian sat in his penthouse, bourbon swirling untouched in his glass. His phone was buzzing relentlessly, headlines flashing across the screen. Julian Kensington exposed, Fiancé unveils multiple affairs at charity gala. Kensington Foundation faces public scrutiny after scandal. His carefully crafted empire cracked. But he wasn't done. Not yet. Gripping the glass tighter, Julian muttered under his breath, "You want a war, Isabella? Fine. Let's play." The fallout began just hours after the gala. Headlines flooded every media outlet, tabloids splashing the scandal across their front pages. Julian Kensington exposed in brutal public breakup, shocking infidelity uncovered. Wealthy CEO humiliated by fiancé's explosive speech. At first, the power shift felt empowering. Isabella had finally taken back her voice, reclaiming her dignity after Julian's betrayal. But the victory was short-lived. Julian Kensington was not a man who accepted defeat. The first sign came 2 days later. Isabella stood in line at her favorite cafe, the same place where she and Julian once shared morning coffee. When she swiped her black credit card to pay, declined. A frown formed. "That can't be right. Try again, please." The barista nodded but shot her a wary glance as the card beeped a second time. Declined. Declined. Heat crept up her neck as whispers began around her. She quickly pulled out cash, paid, and rushed outside, her heart pounding. Something was wrong. Later that afternoon, Isabella sat on her laptop, trying to log into the shared investment account they had once managed together. Access denied. Her phone buzzed. Julian. Consider your actions carefully, Isabella. You started this war, but I finish what I start. Fury bubbled beneath her skin. He was retaliating, freezing her cards, cutting her out of their shared wealth, trying to control her, even after she'd exposed him. By the end of the week, Julian had escalated further. A scathing article emerged in a major gossip column. Bitter fiancé ruins charity gala in jealous outburst, Julian Kensington denies all allegations. The piece painted her as an emotionally unstable ex, using her speech as a publicity stunt for revenge. The worst part? It was working. Old acquaintances stopped returning her calls. Some of her personal business partnerships began distancing themselves. Doubt crept in, suffocating her confidence. Had she gone too far? 2 weeks later, Isabella sat slouched on her living room sofa, staring blankly at her phone as notifications kept flooding in, none of them supportive. A sharp knock echoed at the door. Elena. Her friend stormed in, arms crossed, eyes blazing. Okay, no more sulking. I've let you wallow long enough. Isabella blinked, barely mustering the energy to respond. Elena, you don't understand. He's ruining my reputation. People think I'm the villain here. Elena knelt in front of her, grabbing her hands. Listen to me, Bella. He is twisting the truth. But you spoke from the heart. And the truth, she squeezed Isabella's hand, is still the truth. Tears stung Isabella's eyes, but her resolve hadn't fully returned. Elena, I feel like I'm losing everything. Elena straightened, determination burning in her gaze. Then it's time to fight back. But smarter this time. Elena's words echoed in Isabella's mind later that night. Determined to reclaim her power, she opened the files she had collected from their shared accounts once more, this time with sharper focus. Something caught her eye. A series of payments labeled Kensington Global Ventures, legal fees. But the amounts were staggeringly large and inconsistent. And then, another set of transactions under a shell corporation linked to offshore accounts. It wasn't just infidelity he was hiding. Her pulse quickened. It was fraud. A scandal much bigger than their failed engagement. And this time, she wouldn't just fight for herself. She'd expose everything. The rain pattered softly against Isabella's window as she stared at the flickering screen of her laptop. The evidence glowed back at her, undeniable, damning. Julian had built his empire on a foundation of deception. But tonight, it would crumble. Isabella's heart raced as she uploaded the final files into an encrypted drive. Years of hidden offshore accounts, falsified charity donations, and legal fees disguising hush money payments, all meticulously documented. She crafted a brief, pointed email. To the Manhattan Ledger, Kensington Investors Group, Legal Compliance Division. Subject: Urgent disclosure of financial misconduct, Julian Kensington. Attached you will find irrefutable evidence of financial fraud and corruption committed by Julian Kensington, CEO of Kensington Global Ventures. The enclosed documents reveal illegal offshore transfers, tax evasion, and misuse of charitable funds. Transparency and justice should not be compromised for the sake of wealth. No signature. No trace. She hovered over the send button, exhaling deeply. This isn't just revenge, she reminded herself. This is justice. And with one decisive click, sent. The fallout hit faster than she expected. By morning, headlines flooded every major financial platform. Billionaire Julian Kensington under investigation for fraud. Exclusive: Kensington Global Ventures faces legal scrutiny over financial misconduct. Insider whistleblower leaks shocking evidence of tax evasion and hush money payouts. The media swarmed his offices. Reporters camped outside his penthouse. But the real blow came from the investors. Within 48 hours, 3 of Julian's primary stakeholders issued public statements announcing their withdrawal from Kensington Global Ventures. Julian's empire was collapsing. Isabella sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, watching the chaos unfold on the news. Julian's face was everywhere, no longer the confident, untouchable billionaire but a man under siege. His polished image fractured with each breaking report. The power she felt was undeniable. But so was the ache in her chest. For all his betrayal, she had once loved him. The man who used to kiss her forehead every morning. The man who whispered promises of forever. Was he ever truly that man? Or had it all been a carefully crafted lie? The answer didn't matter anymore. She had won. Hadn't she? The knock came late that night. Soft at first, then louder. Isabella froze. And then his voice. Isabella, open the door. Her pulse quickened. She hesitated before unlocking it. Julian stood in the rain, his suit soaked, tie loosened, but his face. It wasn't anger. It was devastation. Julian. Is this what you wanted? His voice cracked, raw and unsteady. To ruin me? To tear everything I built apart? She folded her arms, willing herself not to waver. No, Julian. You ruined yourself. I just made sure the truth was heard. Silence. His eyes searched hers, no longer filled with arrogance but a hollow desperation. I loved you, Isabella, in my own way. A tear slipped down her cheek, but her voice stayed firm. That wasn't love, Julian. Love is honesty, respect. And you showed me neither. He took a shaky breath. So this is it, then? Isabella nodded, closing the door gently. And this time, she didn't look back. The courtroom was silent, save for the steady ticking of the old clock mounted high on the wall. Julian sat at the defense table, his once flawless image now shattered. His tailored suit hung slightly looser, the confident posture replaced with slumped shoulders. The empire he had so meticulously built was gone. At the front of the room, the judge's voice echoed, finalizing the settlement. Kensington Global Ventures will pay $25 million in damages to the Kensington Investors Group. All personal assets not tied to ongoing investigations are frozen until further notice. Julian barely flinched. But Isabella, seated near the back of the room, exhaled the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It was over. Later that afternoon, as the reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, Isabella slipped through a side door, hoping to avoid the media storm. But Julian was waiting. No cameras. No crowd. Just him, leaning quietly against the stone wall, rain gently misting his face. I'm not here to fight, he said softly as she approached, the bitterness stripped from his voice. She nodded, unsure of what to expect. Julian's gaze met hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. I deserved everything you did, he admitted, voice raw. You were right, Isabella. I lied. I betrayed you, and not just you. So many people. I was so caught up in my own ego, my own need for control, that I forgot what love was supposed to be. Her heart twisted. For all his faults, he had once been the man she thought she'd spend forever with. But forever had been built on lies. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Julian continued, voice trembling. I just needed you to know I was wrong. And I'm sorry. A long silence hung between them. Isabella searched his face, looking for manipulation, for the old arrogance. But it wasn't there. Just remorse. And for the first time, she believed him. I hope you find peace, Julian, she said gently. And with that, she turned away. The settlement money had been substantial, more than she had ever imagined. But it wasn't hers to keep. 2 months later, in a newly renovated hall in Brooklyn, Isabella stood before a crowd gathered under the banner. The Phoenix Project, Rebuilding Lives, Restoring Dignity. Her foundation, built entirely from the financial settlements against Julian, was dedicated to helping women who had experienced emotional betrayal, financial abuse, and power imbalance in relationships. She looked radiant, her confidence returned, not from wealth or revenge but purpose. As she stepped up to the podium, a hush fell over the crowd. Tonight isn't about the past, Isabella began, voice steady. It's about reclaiming our power. For too long I believed that losing love was the worst thing that could happen to me. I thought my value was measured by how someone else treated me, until I realized my worth was never his to define. A murmur of quiet agreement spread through the crowd. Tonight we celebrate healing, growth, and the courage to start again. Applause erupted, warm and genuine, washing over her like sunlight breaking through a storm. As the crowd mingled after the speech, Isabella stepped away for a moment, taking in the scene, the women smiling, sharing stories, finding hope in one another. It was the closure she hadn't known she needed. Beautiful speech. She turned, surprised to see a familiar face emerging from the crowd. Liam Hart. A successful entrepreneur she had met once during the gala planning, a man whose quiet kindness had lingered in her mind. His warm brown eyes met hers with admiration, but no trace of pity. You did something incredible here, he continued softly. I think you've inspired a lot of people tonight. Their gazes held for a beat longer than necessary. For the first time in a long while, Isabella felt something shift. Not redemption, not closure, but hope. As the event wound down, Isabella stood alone by the window, watching the city lights twinkle below. The scars of her past still lingered, but they no longer defined her. And as Liam's voice echoed from across the room, calling her name, she smiled. A real, unburdened smile. Because sometimes, losing the wrong love makes space for the right one. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey of courage, healing, and self-discovery. Isabella's story reminds us that true strength comes from reclaiming our worth, even after heartbreak. If you enjoyed this emotional tale and want to hear more inspiring stories that touch the soul, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that could change your perspective or even your life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next heartwarming story.